Week on video. Nope, that's not true.
Whoa, I was like, skipped ahead.
I skipped it. Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. Oh man, I'm. Where are we? What is going on? No, it's all good. We got it.
Okay. Fix it in post.
Fix it. Yep. Somebody will do that. Don't worry about it.
You are DJ Ross in Mountain View, California.
Oh, okay. That's what's going on.
And now I say here, each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. On this week's show, we're playing Oxenfree II, Lost Signals, and Asura's Wrath.
Yeah, classic. Yeah.
Plus, we're wrapping up Viewfinder, and we're exploring Final Fantasy XIV's Variant Dungeon.
It's a good one.
Really pushing our luck with this Final Fantasy content.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's all I got.
I'm going to need you to play something that isn't Final Fantasy, teacher.
It's a good year for Final Fantasy. Got the new mainline game. We got a bunch of nice updates to the MMO. We got FanFest this weekend. It's great.
Oh man, new Final Fantasy content incoming.
Just wait for next week's show if you're sick of this Final Fantasy content.
I know, seriously. I'm taking next week off. I don't want to be here for that.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. There's no weeks off.
Yeah, no, never.
I'm out of PTO anyways.
Oh. What did you spend all your PTO on? wait, are you talking about the PTO for your job, or do we get PTO for this show?
For this show? Is PTO an option? Should I go talk to HR?
Yeah, that's news to me.
Mm.
Does it roll over? Wait. I hope so.
Wait, aren't you the HR guy?
Oh, am I the HR now? Okay. I'm just doing everything.
Did you approve my PTO? Yeah, you produce the show, you select the music, you do, you're our HR person.
Okay.
You approve all of my time off.
I have probably got like 10 years of PTO days accrued, so I got to start using that.
Yeah. You're also our 401k administrator.
Oh, okay. Well, got bad news for you about that.
No. You invested heavily in Bitcoin, didn't you?
Yeah, well, got me. It's been scrolling all the way on NFTs.
Right.
Remember NFTs? Those were so cool.
Yep. Yeah. I read something this weekend about somebody who invested in a $4 million NFT that is currently worth 45 cents.
Oh, jeez.
And it fills my heart with such joy. It was just such a wonderful moment. It felt great.
They paid $4 million, or they were told it would be worth $4 million one day. I still don't fully understand how that was supposed to work.
I believe it was purchased for $4 million.
Ooh.
Yeah. And now has the value of less than $1.
Well,
sort of like investing in Twitter.
Jeez. I hope somebody somewhere is enjoying that $4 million.
Yeah, I don't know to whom that went, but hopefully they did not turn that over and invest further in NFTs.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Anyway, so how's it going, DJ? How you been? How's your weekend? How's summer?
Oh, it's fine. Summer is terrible as usual, but what's the expression? I'm getting by.
Yeah.
Surviving.
It feels more terrible. It's somehow like I've not been a big summer guy. I'm not a beach or sunshine guy, but this year just feels particularly oppressive with the weather and the heat and all of the nonsense. I want to go outside even less than I usually do.
You should come out to California. We're having a super mild summer. I mean, it's still terrible because, it's not like 70 degrees, but it's not 100 like it was last year. That was awful.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we have it this year, I think, because we're like 10 consecutive days over 89 degrees or something like that. So
yeah, it's no good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. We're packing it up. We're moving to California.
All right.
Get the couch ready, DJ.
The couch ready. Got some more bad news for you.
Right. You don't have a couch?
I have a couch. It's fine. It's not a large couch.
Does it sleep one Randy, one Sarah, and one Dachshund?
You'll have to switch off, I think.
Yeah. We'll have to go in shifts.
Yeah, that's fine.
As
long as none of you sleep for more than 8 hours a day, should be good. As long as the Dachshunds sleep.
Like 22 hours a day.
Oh, okay. Well, you're going to have to do some negotiation.
Roscoe is a professional sleeper. Yeah. I'm usually good for like 5 or 6 hours, so I don't take up a ton.
5 or 6 hours?
Yeah.
That's not enough, I feel like.
No, it's not. And everything I read says that you should sleep more. 8 hours is sort of the standard. No, I can't get anywhere near 8 hours. I try. I like clear my schedule sometimes, and I'm like, I'm going to sleep in tomorrow, and then like wide awake at 5:30 in the morning or something crazy like that.
Are you like tired all the time?
No. I think I'm generally a pretty energetic guy.
Okay, well, then maybe you're good with 5 hours.
Maybe that's my magic number, right? I kind of hope as I sort of careen into my old age that is enough to get me by.
I have to imagine that it's not like a hard rule that everybody needs 8 hours of sleep. That's just sort of the average. I was just thinking, like, I probably get less than 8 hours, and I feel like that's not enough. So hearing you just getting 5 hours is horrifying.
Well, if that's the average, that means somewhere somebody's getting 11 hours of sleep to my 5. So, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to sleep for 11 hours. I get rare occasions where I sleep just a little bit longer. I'll sleep 6 hours, 6.5 hours. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been asleep for far too long.
The decadence. 6 hours in a row.
I'm missing stuff. I could be scrolling through my phone, or
just think of all the social media I'm missing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or playing video games.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now we're getting productive.
Catching up on the backlog.
Do you just wake up at 5 a.m. and immediately just spool something up on your phone? And you're off to gaming.
No, not really. I'm not like a phone in bed person. I'll do a little bit of it at night before bed, which is probably not great either. But
no.
First thing in the morning, I don't need that shit in my brain. So it's usually like turn the alarm off. The alarm, of course, is the phone. And then it's dogs. So I got to get Roscoe up and Sarah's usually up. She's an independent adult. And we get the day going. We're off. Feed Mr. Roscoe outside for peeps and poops. Coffee. And then maybe a little like aimless scrolling before getting in the shower.
Okay.
And starting the thing. But no, I can't just start like immediately mainlining, MSNBC headlines or Twitter or whatever into my skull at 7 a.m. because that's no way to live your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds very responsible.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of healthy decisions.
Self-care. That came about during the pandemic. I used to be like all news all the time, listening to like politics podcasts in the car on the way to and from work, and MSNBC every night until midnight, and it was wild, like completely out of control. And it didn't help,
wild
believe
times.
it or not.
No,
so,
it didn't.
Nope, no. So I've had to like just go cold turkey on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's better.
Find that I pay so much less attention to the news now, which I don't feel great about, because there's something like I feel like it's good to just be aware of what's happening.
Sure.
Like as a member of society, and just as a human being, it's nice to know what's going on. But I just feel so much better now. This is probably not a good sign. But several years ago, I realized that a lot of my like sort of current events would reach me through that sort of like Twitter trending topics sidebar. Mm-hmm. The greatest source of news on the internet.
Sure.
Although on some level, it was often the most timely source, so that it had that
it's certainly
going for
faster than most. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I realized that like more and more it would just become stupid celebrity news or just weird sort of drama like that is not really anything of substance. So I just removed that sidebar. And immediately I was just, all this stuff. I mean, it was hilarious because then I would see everything sort of secondhand because everybody in my timeline would start complaining about something. But because I didn't have the actual source of it anymore. I just had to sort of guess what everybody was complaining about, without actually knowing what it was. So that was
left
fun.
to assume what the Führer is based on the sort of context of the Führer.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of have to like discern the shape of it from what everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
But as a result, I just no longer had sort of breaking news spoon-fed to my face 24 hours a day. And it was like, I'm kind of okay with it. Like, maybe I'll make more of an effort to look at actual news outlets every once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, just not having the constant megaphone of stupid celebrity stuff showing up in your face all the time. So it's good.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is also sort of another, like, again, as I get older, I know less and less about who most of those people are.
Mm-hmm.
So, or I find myself, asking, like, somebody under 40, like, is that the kid that was in the Wednesday show? Or whatever, sort of for context, like maybe that somehow sort of crossed into my awareness someplace as I was scrolling through Netflix or whatever. Just trying to sort of figure out who certain celebrities under the age of 25 are, because I've not done a good job of keeping up with that stuff, which is fine, which is very liberating, which feels good. Yeah. Yeah. And every now and then some musician I like or some actor I like will make a movie or a record or something like that. And I'm like, hey, I know that person. I like their work. This resonates with me. And that's enough. That's fine. I don't have to know all of it. I don't have to see every movie. I have to buy every record.
Right.
It's just kind of stay in my lane. And then I turn into my parents. I turn into my dad, who only listens to the same 5 CDs over and over and over.
Oh, yeah. No, I can't wait. I mean, I do that anyway already. So it's like I've arrived doing it.
Yeah. Spotify, have you tried the Spotify AI DJ yet? Where it's sort of like, we selected some songs from our algorithm that we think you might like, and it starts playing, and I'm like, nope.
No.
5 for 5, Spotify. I don't like any of that crap.
I've had mixed success. I haven't tried the AI thing yet, but I feel like more often than not, if I, choose somebody who I already know I like listening to and just let it sort of like run the radio or whatever, I've like discovered some new artists who I like through that. Although now that I think about it more, it's probably under 50% success rate.
Sure.
But like it's not zero. It's probably more like 25%, which seemed pretty good.
Yeah, I had a moment on the road where it was sort of like the AI voice was all, you haven't played these bands before, but we think based on your musical taste that you'll like them. And then the first one was an Aerosmith song. And I'm like, no, there's nothing. I defy you to explain to me what in my musical history would lead you to think that I'm into Aerosmith. And the next one was Imagine Dragons. And then I was out. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, none of this is for me. I skipped through 3 more songs. I forget what they were in context, but it was just not a good success rate. So I'm like, no, I'm going to go back to my own playlists. I'm going to pick my own music from now on. Thank you.
The problem with my Spotify listening history is that I only use Spotify to listen to music that I don't already own. So it's just, holes in my music library. So I tend to get very distorted recommendations.
Gotcha.
And I haven't really figured out a way to reconcile like stuff that was previously in my iTunes library with stuff that I have on Spotify. If only there was like, you remember Last.fm? If only there was a Last.fm app, because that gets my plays from both my desktop music player and Spotify. So that has everything. Yeah. Those recommendations should be the best, but they don't have their own thing. Or maybe they do, I just don't pay for it.
Do you, I'm sure it's a paid service. I still have a Scrabbler on my phone. So when I listen to music through Spotify, on my phone anyways, it still feeds it into my Last.fm history. So if I were then to go to Last.fm, presumably I could pull recommendations out of that. But I suspect they found a way to charge people for that service, and I don't need 2 different websites to tell me which music I should like, and probably don't.
Yeah, in general, I don't really use like recommendation services like that. I'm always just like, I know what I want to listen to, so let's just listen to that.
Well, and I think that's some of the dilemma, is that Spotify is so built for discovery. It's so built to like play you 3 songs that you like and then sneak in a 4th one from a band you've never heard of, and you hope you don't notice, or you go, oh, what is that? That's cool. I've never heard that before. and then you're in. But I don't know how susceptible to that I am anymore.
Yes, yeah, I don't really go for that in the first place.
Yeah, I did.
As soon as this starts playing something I don't recognize, I'm just like, nope, turn that off. Just, you had your chance, and I'm gonna just shut you down for 24 hours again.
Ugh. So our advice for our listeners: don't get old.
Yeah, good advice.
And try to sleep at least 8 hours a night.
Yeah, that's all right.
Mm-hmm. That's
I feel like the second thing will help you with the first thing.
Probably, yes. I think there is definitely a connection between those two things. Let's sort of pivot hard right into video games. I want to report that I finished a video game.
Oh.
Which is not a thing that I do often.
Zelda?
No, please.
No, of course
not. How dare you. I finished Viewfinder. Which I was so close last week. I was just in the final stretch and didn't quite get across to credits before we started recording. But since then, I have finished it. Viewfinder, for those who did or did not listen last week, is a new puzzle game, first-person puzzle game, where you manipulate 2D photos into sort of 3D environments to solve puzzles. It's very cool. It's super playable. DJU had some concerns last week that you would like it, but maybe it would be a little too tough. You would find yourself sort of perhaps, I don't know what the right word is, overwhelmed maybe by some of these puzzles.
Overwhelmed, Stumped, perhaps.
Stumped, yeah. I assured you that it was pretty approachable, that there definitely are a few head scratchers in there, but there's some really good tools built into the way that you can kind of consume the game and rewind your time to be able to kind of experiment without feeling like you're kind of beating your head against a wall. I want to add that since the game has now come out, I was playing it pre-release, there is a hint system built into it. That was not there in the first download of this game. They added it on day one.
Oh, interesting.
So if you or any of our listeners are concerned, like, man, I'm interested in this Viewfinder game, but I'm not sure if it would be, setting myself up for failure to approach something like this. There is a very gentle hint system built into it. You get a little pop-up after kind of futzing with a puzzle for a few minutes that says, hey, if you need a little help, check out the pause menu. And you go to pause and they add a feature that says hint. And it's usually just a little one-liner. It's not... Some games really sort of go crazy with this hint thing and tell you the answer to the puzzle. Viewfinder does not do that. It sort of gently nudges you into sort of thinking about something perhaps differently to get you towards the direction of a solution. So I think they've deployed it very tactfully without the potential of sort of ruining the adventure of kind of discovering the solution for yourself. So I like it. I actually had to consult it during one or two of the final puzzles because they do kind of, bring the intensity in the final act. And I thought it was super helpful. It definitely sort of encouraged me to like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Let's try this. And that sort of sense of discovery and experimentation was still intact. It didn't feel like it ever got spoiled for me. So I appreciate that it's there, and perhaps maybe it gets some more people to the game.
Nice. That's good to know that's in there. I also like that it doesn't just spit out the answer or, something like that while you're still working on the puzzle. Like it'll remind you that there's an option to receive a hint, but it doesn't just decide you needed one.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate and respect that as well. I believe there is a function of to go into the menu, the settings, and turn that off completely if you're a masochist and don't want any help or even a reminder that help is available. You can choose whether or not that is for you. But it's cool that it's in there. It's a really, really good game. I had a ton of fun with it. I actually went back upon getting to credits and did some of the optional puzzles that I sort of discovered over the course of the game, but didn't do right away. So that has been fun as well. And those little optional like sidetrack puzzles are tough, but again, super rewarding once you kind of get there. So it's good. I love the game. It's probably one of my favorite things that I've played so far this year. Would definitely recommend people check out Viewfinder.
Cool. Well, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
Did you have any issues with, I saw this, not a Vine. They don't do Vines anymore. I guess it was a TikTok this weekend of somebody playing this and having an adverse reaction to what they, I guess, described as like Marvel movie dialogue. where in this clip they're solving one of these puzzles by manifesting a bridge or something out of a photo. And then I guess it's a character in the game where there's like a narrator or something who says something like, "Whoa, did you just shift reality?" or something like that. And then whoever is playing the game just immediately goes into the settings and turns the voice audio down to 0.
I don't remember anything feeling quite so kind of jarringly kind of goofy. There is an AI companion you have in the game, a little cat that kind of pops up in places. And you can pet the cat. That's important to a lot of people. I want to point out here that there is a cat in the game, and you can walk up to it, and a little prompt says "pet," and you rub his little head. But he does sort of give you some commentary. He helps you fill in some of the story because people have been to the place that you're exploring before, and he's sort of filling you in on kind of what they did and et cetera, and trying to help you find the thing that you're looking for over the course of these puzzles. And he does sort of respond with awe sometimes, but I don't remember it being sort of like quite so goofy.
Okay. I wasn't sure. There's not a lot of context in that clip for what's going on or like who is talking, but it was in this whole thread of like, is Marvel movie dialogue just ruining games for you now? Because I feel like there have been so many instances of this in recent games. I just was surprised to see Viewfinder pop up. Apparently this clip was like pretty widely circulated.
Gotcha. I see so few Marvel movies that maybe I just don't appreciate the context.
Okay, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's tough for me to describe exactly what it is. It's just kind of like the sort of meaningless quips. I guess it was in a bunch of the recent Star Wars movies as well. They got criticized for it a bit, where, character, like something will happen, and instead of having an actual reaction to whatever it was, they'll just say something like, "Well, that just happened," and it's like, oh, okay. It's just so templated, and it's not very interesting.
Yeah. No, I don't feel like Viewfinder plays that way. The little AI companion cat has a lovely speaking voice, a Scottish accent for some reason. And I think is quite thoughtful, and I think pretty measured in how often he chimes in and comments even. I never felt, and I'm pretty sensitive to this in video games, but I've never really felt like I wanted to go in and turn his volume down. So, no. And in fact, every time he was in one of the levels, I ran up to him immediately and scratched his head and see if he had anything to say to me. So I thought he was kind of a nice value add to the game.
Okay. Well, we'll never know what was going on in that clip. And I'll have to play the game and figure out what's going on.
Maybe I should be jaded about Viewfinder, and I'm not. I don't know.
Well, I'm just wondering, because I don't even remember if you mentioned, I think you mentioned the AI companion, but I didn't get the sense that there was just somebody talking to you throughout the entire game. So I was a little confused seeing that. I'm glad it wasn't dragging it down at all.
Oh, no, there's not somebody talking to you after the whole thing. Mostly it's pretty quiet. There's little audio logs you can find of the people who were there in the levels before you, giving you some kind of context. There is a partner that your character has that calls you on payphones periodically. So sometimes you'll start a level and a payphone will be ringing somewhere, and you have to find the phone and you can talk to them briefly.
Okay.
But I think it's slight. I think it's so slight, in fact, that it's pretty missable sometimes. It's never really overbearing or annoying. So I again give the devs credit for obviously sort of assembling a puzzle game that I think is super approachable, but also dropping in kind of these little character things without it being annoying.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to check it out. It's definitely on my list.
Cool. Yeah, would enthusiastically recommend.
Thanks. So, I had a delightful experience in Final Fantasy this last week because of a new patch that dropped, and I wasn't expecting to talk about it, but I was just so sort of blown away by this, and I thought it was a nice coda for the talk about Final Fantasy XVI last week, especially when we were talking about the sort of approach to dungeons or just the overall game design. I just thought it was very good timing.
Cool.
So I wanted to drag Final Fantasy XIV back into the spotlight because they released this new thing. It's like a new type of content. I'm trying to come up with something other than content to use to describe it, but that's basically what it is. It's a new type of thing you can do. It's a new ride you can go on in Final Fantasy XIV that they've started doing this expansion called Variant Dungeons. Like I said, I thought it was a good follow-up to when we talked about dungeons last week, because if you remember, or if you didn't catch last week's discussion, the dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV, they started out as what you might expect from, if you said you're going to go into a dungeon in a video game, where they would be like this whole sprawling thing, almost maze-like, with all these different paths to explore, and occasionally there would be a sort of little puzzle you had to solve. So, kind of interesting. Not especially conducive to like a multiplayer experience, because you would end up, you're in there with 3 other people. And the tendency is to just want to get through the dungeon as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So there may be all these really interesting alternate routes to explore and puzzles to solve, but basically it would come down to somebody would go, hey, I know the fastest route through this thing. Let's just do that. We can skip as many of the puzzles as possible and just get to the boss and clear this place out. And they've sort of like taken that into account when designing the new dungeons, which I mentioned last week, have just sort of turned into an amusement park ride where you just get shuttled between 2 to 3 bosses as quickly as possible. And it's spectacular. It's very exciting, but it's missing sort of that, the classic dungeon feel.
Mm-hmm.
But this expansion pack that's been out for the last couple years at this point, they'll usually add in new types of experimental content just to see, like, hey, we have this new idea, let's see how the player base likes it. And one of the experiments this time around is called Variant Dungeons, which are sort of like, I'm going to say, a new take on the dungeon experience. But actually, depending on how you look at it, it's kind of an old take. Because what they are is, it's not the very linear, like, amusement park ride experience anymore. It's like, once again, this huge sprawling dungeon. It has multiple paths you can take through it. There's a lot of sort of like story or lore on each path, which is delivered to you by, there's like an NPC from the main storyline who will accompany you. They don't participate in any of the fights or anything. They just sort of hang back and wait for you to clear out a room, and then they'll just sort of tell you something interesting about the room, or like its history, or react to the battle that just took place, and that sort of stuff. It's sort of just like extra flavor. But they're designed for you to go through multiple times, because there's so many of these different paths for you to explore. And the catch is, it's not always obvious how to sort of unlock every path. Like, you can go through, and occasionally there will be something that you run into, like a character that you run into, and they'll give you a couple of dialogue options. And at that point, it's very obvious, like, oh, if I select this option, it's probably going to funnel me off to, like, path A, versus if I pick the other one, I'll get the other path. And then depending on which path you end up taking, you'll reach, like, a different outcome at the end of the dungeon, which is usually, like, a different boss, or, like, even if you can take multiple paths to reach the same boss, and maybe the boss will behave slightly differently depending on the decisions you've made or the routes you've taken leading up to that point.
Oh, interesting.
But then at the end, when you sort of reach the end of each path, you beat the boss, you unlock a journal entry, which, again, provides you more sort of backstory around the dungeon. But this is my favorite part, I think, is as you compile these journal entries, within each one, or within specific journal entries, there are clues which help you unlock more paths in the dungeon. And ultimately, everything is sort of building towards you unlocking, like, the super secret sort of, like, final path for this dungeon, which typically takes you to this, like, secret final boss and, the conclusion to the story around the dungeon. And it's not just a matter of, like, pick the right dialogue option as you go through the dungeon. You really have to sort of sit down and look through all the lore entries and sort of, like, be observant as you go through the dungeon and look for things that might be clues as you progress, because, they hide it from you a little bit. But as a result, I've had an amazing time this week. They just came out with a new variant dungeon. This is only the second one that they've done so far.
Oh, cool.
And I, had a great time with the first one. I decided, like, the first one was new, and I wasn't sure what really to expect from it, so I ended up using a guide for a lot of it, just sort of explaining how to unlock the different paths. But for this one, I decided, I'm just going to go and try and do this all myself, not look at any guides, try and piece together all the puzzles and everything. So I would get into one of these, like, jump into the dungeon, pick whichever path I felt like going on. And at the end of it, I would just go through the journal and, like, pore over these sort of, like, lore entries, looking for things that might be clues, like, oh, okay, this one mentions, like, a specific ritual that was performed at some point, or this one talks about, blah, 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 some other thing. And I ended up with this whole spreadsheet full of, like, okay, so this is how you get to path A, this is how you get to path B. It was basically, the Always Sunny conspiracy board full of, like, thread connecting everything.
Excellent.
To the point where, I had uncovered every path through this dungeon, except for the final one, and I was really just, like, bashing my head against the wall trying to figure out what was going on. But eventually I came up with a theory that I felt was promising, and it took a little sort of fine-tuning and several sort of botched dungeon runs through this thing. But eventually, like, I had sort of a breakthrough, and I don't want to, like, spoil what it was. But something happened in one of these runs that hadn't happened before, and I immediately saw, I was like, oh my god, this is it. This is sort of like the clue, or like is a clue towards the secret path of the dungeon. One of these things is not like the others, yeah. Yeah. So I was like, okay, so knowing this, I'm going to do one final run through this thing, and, we'll do things a little differently with this new knowledge. And lo and behold, this new path opens up to this brand new area that I've, up to this point, I've never seen. And so I know this is the route to the final secret boss. On top of that, what I thought was extra hilarious is that I just spent hours at this point just looking over these lore entries and learning about the backstory of this dungeon. So as soon as I arrived in this area, I was just like, oh my god, this is the area that so-and-so talked about in, like, journal entry number 3 or whatever. It was the mysterious secret area that nobody could find, which I thought was just great, because I don't know how much I typically get into the lore of stuff. Like, I don't often go back and just sit in the codex and read through everything, but I guess I made an exception in this case. So I got through the entire thing. I managed to solve the entire thing myself, which I thought was very cool. And especially after playing through 16, which I thought was, I enjoyed quite a bit, but it was a very linear, prescribed experience. And there are pretty much no puzzles to speak of. Just having this variant dungeon thing come out, which was sort of the complete opposite. It's like, a new dungeon to explore, puzzles to solve. You can do the entire thing by yourself if you want to, so you don't even need to have the group of other online players to get through, which made it much easier to sort of backtrack and try and piece other clues together. It was really good. Just an overall really amazing experience. So I just thought, man, they are just doing loops around 16 with their dungeon design. I wish you could get an entire game full of stuff like this. That would be incredible.
Cool. It sounds like a very kind of delicate balancing act, because the prospect of getting me to sort of play and replay any sort of one thing over and over again, looking for subtle variations and other paths to take, would be tough. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they were able to construct this thing in a way that sort of you found compelling, and kept wanting to sort of like explore and find the next pathway to, the super secret special ending, is super cool.
Yeah, and there's definitely, that's definitely a concern, and I'm not going to say it wasn't repetitive at points. There's only 12 paths through it, and you end up running this thing many, many times to sort of track down all the little missing clues and everything. Mm-hmm. So I didn't do it all in one go, I'll just say. Take some breaks and come back to it. But I just thought it was so cool, just not even really knowing necessarily what to be looking for. I just would do one path and not unlock anything new, and then I go, okay, well, maybe there was something on this other path that I missed, and sort of take my time working my way through it again, just trying to look for anything out of the ordinary. Really different experience of anything else in 14, and especially 16. Plus the whole thing, like the first one of these variant dungeons they put out was sort of, I guess, very stereotypical dungeon. It was like underground, like half of it was a sewer. It was very dreary and sort of unpleasant.
Yeah.
But this one was on the top of this, like, it sort of goes back to the far eastern area in the game, which we haven't visited for a while. And it's like this monastery on the top of this, like, very, like, Japanese landscape in the middle of autumn. So it's just gorgeous, like all these brightly colored leaves and vistas around. And again, you know, it's nice to have a little bit of color and a change of scenery after 16. So it was great to just have this incredible environment to just hang out in. So that certainly helped with the, like, multiple replays through this thing.
Cool.
But yeah, I had a great time with it, and I'm a little disappointed that, you know, there are only 2 so far. I'm sure it takes a lot of work for them to construct something like this. But it really caught me off guard this time. I'm not sure if it helped that I was coming from 16, which was very dreary.
Right.
Or was just looking for something a little more engaging than the side quests in that game.
Sure. Or something that just sort of just felt a little bit more like a dungeon crawler, perhaps.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you played the first variant dungeon as well? Have you done both of them?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, it had a little bit of the puzzle solving as well. But like I said, I used a guide for it, so it sort of took some of the challenge out of it.
You did say that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so, well, they're getting better as they progress. The third one should be amazing.
I hope so. Yeah, and now I'm just like, oh, where's it going to be? Who is the NPC who's going to come along this time? Because actually the sort of side story, you got a little backstory of the NPC as well, has been very interesting.
Cool.
I'm so sad whenever one of these things comes out, there's always a portion of the player base who will get into it, and they're just like, okay, give me the guide. Just tell me where to go. Tell me what to click on. And they'll just burn through this in 24 hours. And then complain that, oh, there's nothing else to do in this game. What am I going to do? So that makes me sad. But like, if that's what people want to do, if that's how you want to play the game, then good, like, go for it. Sure.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
But man, it was so cool just getting into this and just having this weird sort of like puzzle mystery experience.
Cool. Speaking of puzzle mystery experience.
Oh.
I finally dug into Oxenfree II Lost Signals.
When did this come out? Was this recent?
A couple weeks now. I think 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you're a huge Oxenfree fan, so I figured you would be like staying up till midnight for this thing to come out on the eShop or whatever.
Well, here's the dilemma: is so much of kind of the Oxenfree experience. This sounds very pretentious. Is the voice acting is really, really good in these. Rewind. Night School Studio is the developer of Oxenfree and Oxenfree II. They also made a game called After Party. All of them are very sort of dialogue driven. All of them have really, really good, high quality voice acting, excellent characters, lots of really strong writing, very dialogue heavy. The other thing about these games that is kind of notable is the soundtracks are awesome. The composer they work with goes by Scientific, is their stage name, and writes, performs, composes, etc. All of the soundtracks for Night School's games, and he's awesome. His music is so good. So it's not a thing that I want to play like in bed with the volume down so as not to disturb my partner. Like I want to like have it on a TV and turn the volume up and put it in my, make it come out of my giant speakers on my entertainment center. So I didn't want to like consume it on a tiny screen on my Switch. I wanted to like bask in this game a little bit. So I know I wanted to play as much of it as I could kind of in docked mode. To be able to kind of appreciate the dialogue and be able to, because you could read the game, you can turn on subtitles and do it on silent and just read your way through it. But no, I want to hear the effort put into, luring good voice actors to this thing. I want to listen to Scientific soundtrack. And, so I had to wait for that. I couldn't commandeer the TV. I couldn't do late nights. I had to look for the right time to sort of have a window of opportunity to be able to enjoy this. So yeah, it took a little bit longer than I would have liked. I would have loved to tear into it the night it came out. And like you said about Final Fantasy XIV, just power through it. Just, go to town on the thing and explore the whole game in one shot. But no, I felt like, I need to spend some quality time with the new Oxenfree game.
Okay. Well, so not like a literal sort of like jump on it at midnight, but the next day. But it's been like a few weeks, so I'm just
least,
wondering
right?
what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good. I'm kind of consuming it slowly now. I haven't finished it yet. It is a game of multiple paths. It is a game of a lot of decision making. I played Oxenfree, the first one, a couple of times because there were different decisions you could make that led to very different outcomes and different places the story would go. So again, not a thing that I do in video games very often, but I really like the way that Oxenfree was kind of constructed, and I was super into the characters and story. So I wanted to spend as much time with that game as possible. In fact, over the last couple of weeks, I've thought, should I play Oxenfree again before the sequel comes out? And again, this is not a thing that I find myself compelled to do with video games very often. I generally find I wrap up with them when I'm kind of done, ready for the next thing. There's always more video games waiting. So there is something about this series that I find super compelling.
Did you end up replaying it?
I didn't know. I was looking at how long it would take to play and had a bunch of other stuff we were playing through. And then I got the code for Viewfinder, and I was like, well, that's a new game. I should play that before some old game. And yeah, so it just never happened. Although now I'm playing Oxenfree II, and I'm like, I really should have played the first Oxenfree again.
No. It's not the shortest game, right? It's not especially long, but it's not like casually replay in a weekend kind of deal.
No, it's not a single sitting by any means. It's probably not even a couple of sittings. I don't remember the exact play time, but under 10, more than 5, some play, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, it's it's not Tears of the Kingdom, but it definitely would have been more than I could take on in a day or two. So the hook here is Oxenfree II is you are a character named Riley who has returned home to her sort of Pacific Northwest, kind of dark and dreary, kind of rainy, kind of mountainous, oceanside hometown called Kamina to do kind of a summer job of putting radio transmitters around an island. And in the course of doing this, you start picking up a lot of sort of strange and mysterious signals. And those signals create some kind of like time distortion where you find yourself as a character and as the player kind of rewinding time periodically. And then you find that there are other people sort of stuck in similar time loops and their stories are kind of overlapping with yours. Because you can pick up all these signals. You're hearing other people communicate. You can communicate with kind of other timelines, which is really interesting. And it leads you to a lot of kind of interesting kind of puzzle solving and kind of time manipulation as you start to sort of understand what's happening.
Is this like a continuation of the first game?
It is a pretty direct continuation. The developers say that it's 5 years after the events of Oxenfree. So far, I don't think I've encountered any characters that are actually in the first game. The first game was a group of teenagers kind of discovering a very similar set of circumstances.
I was going to say, it almost sounds like just the same thing happening to a different person.
Yes, yeah. And now it's 5 years later, and you are a different character. You're an older character. You're somebody sort of approaching 30 to 35, I would guess. And you are kind of unearthing a very similar mystery as the first one. So yeah, it feels like it kind of trods a lot of the same paths as the first Oxenfree. It does give you a lot more kind of to do. The exploration is very similar. You have like a lot of paths that you're on. You have a map and you're trying to work your way around different islands to get to different kind of vantage points and stuff like that to put up radio transmitters. The navigation through the first game was very, very similar. You had a map and you were trying to like kind of explore and get to places and connect with your friends and stuff like that. So it doesn't feel very different, or it's suddenly we didn't switch from like Oxenfree was a 2D game and now Oxenfree 2 is 3D first-person shooter. You know what I mean? It's not like a huge upgrade in that regard. It does feel like, okay, we sort of identified what people liked about Oxenfree, and here's more of it in Oxenfree 2, but from a different perspective.
Okay.
And that's fine. That's cool. There was a part of me that sort of expected, like, man, I have my socks knocked off by the sequel of Oxenfree 2. And it just sort of feels like, oh, I get it. I get the mystery. I understand kind of what's happening to a degree. There's kind of a new perspective on it, which is cool. The characters, again, the voice acting, the music, all really, really well done. But it does feel a little familiar.
I have to say, I am actually kind of interested. I'm intrigued,
cool.
anyway.
You didn't love the first Oxenfree.
I didn't love the first one. I didn't finish it. I decided I had enough at some point. I sort of I like the concept of it. I like the mystery. I like sort of the dialogue options. But to my taste, it had far too many cool teens on that island. And after a certain point, I just couldn't deal with them anymore.
Yeah.
But now you're just playing as an old person, so that sounds more my speed.
Well, I've read a little bit about sort of the development of the sequel, and the devs weren't sure they wanted to make another Oxenfree. And they started sort of pitching, like, how would we make it different? How could we shift the perspective? What would make it new and interesting to people? And they wanted to get away from, what they landed on was getting away from a group of teens perspective to somebody who was a little more world-weary, a little further along in life. What would their perspective be, and how would they approach it? Sort of this mysterious set of events happening to them. So I think that perspective was very important to this game even existing. Which is cool. I certainly appreciate it. I don't love playing games with a bunch of surly teens. I liked it in Oxenfree. I think they sort of rose above it a little bit, but it definitely helps to be kind of in the shoes of somebody who's a little more worldly, I think, in the sequel. Yeah. So it's cool. I think it does a lot of the things that I really like from Oxenfree. You have a lot of cool new tools for getting around. You're an outdoorsy person, so you have tools to be able to kind of do mountain climbing and to drop ropes into caves and go explore. It feels like a much scarier game than the first one because it deals with like time distortions and manipulations. You do find like little sudden moments where like time will kind of rewind, and it usually appears as like a glitch on the screen, and something will happen, and then you'll zip to a different place on the map and you'll wake up being super confused, and you as the player are confused because the character is confused. And you're trying to sort of suss out where am I and sort of where in the timeline now am I. And yeah, it's cool. I think they do a lot of really smart kind of narrative tricks to keep it kind of a feeling ominous. There's a mysterious cult involved, which
of course
always adds an interesting shade of menace to a video game experience, I think.
So wasn't a cult in the first game, was there?
I don't believe there was. No, I don't remember one.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's cool. I think it's a smart way of approaching a sequel. There is clearly, like I said, sort of a sense of what made the first Oxenfree work, but just sort of shifting that perspective and giving you as the sort of the player a little more, a few more tools for exploration. It never turns into like a platformer or anything like that. It doesn't sort of deviate from what Oxenfree was in terms of gameplay. You're doing a lot of like dialogue options, navigating. You get 3 choices to sort of respond to anybody's input. But that's not true. You get a 4th choice, which is not responding at all. Which, no response is a response. And the characters that you're talking to will pivot on that or sort of respond to your silence or et cetera, et cetera. So that's, it's cool. There's definitely an element of kind of role playing into the dialogue choices that I really like. It's all done very conversational. People don't wait for you to answer. So you have to sort of get a word in sometimes. And it's usually about you sort of quickly selecting a dialogue choice to keep the conversation going rather than, I think like the Mass Effect approach is everyone stands around and wait while you read all of the dialogue options and select the one that you like the most. The Oxenfree games After Party was like this as well. You get sort of a quick summary of what the gist of your response is going to be, and you have to quickly select it to be able to sort of respond to the person talking to you in a way that feels natural. I like that. I think it feels a little more human and a little less sort of like studied in your approach to a dialogue tree. Yeah, I dig it. It's a really, really cool game. It sort of hits all the right buttons for me, I think, in terms of sort of narrative and air quotes here, gameplay, and having a really sort of compelling mystery with a little bit of a creep factor to it. I'm having a good time with it. It is what I hoped it would be.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I was expecting you to just write this one completely off, but now I may have to grudgingly take a look at it to see what's going on.
I don't know how much you need to know about the first Oxenfree to be able to appreciate the second one.
If I decide to play this, I'm just going to go read the wiki on the first one.
You don't want to hang out with the teens again?
No, it's fine. I think I had like multiple attempts to get through that game because I I played a decent amount of it the first time and just decided I didn't care for the characters.
Oh.
But then, people just loved that game so much. I thought, well, I'll take another look at it. I think the Switch had just come out, so it was sort of novel having it on the handheld. And yeah, I just had kind of the same experience the second time. Like, still not really feeling it. But, still specifically not feeling the characters. Enjoying all the other stuff that was happening in the game. But if I can play something similar to that with a different cast, maybe that's what I wanted all along.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem to, like, clearly I know the first game pretty well. I've played through it multiple times. One of the things that I really liked about the first one is that there is a character who is in the game who dies fairly on, and the weight of that sort of carries forward through the game. But I had read after finishing the first playthrough that there is some decisions you can make that keep that character alive. So it became my mission to, like, I want to do a playthrough where this person lives through the entire game.
Did they die in it?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, so it's been a long time since I played this.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember exactly
brother.
what the circumstances
I'm not sure if that means anything to you this many years on, but the main character's brother.
I thought he died before the game started.
Is that what it was?
I think so, right? Because they're all like very reluctant to talk about the brother at the start, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. You're right. Maybe I'm confusing it with some other video game.
Okay.
But no, I don't think I am. But yeah, I think there's something you can do that either sort of reintroduces that character, or you can sort of undo choices over time, et cetera, that get a result where that character remains alive.
Okay. I was thinking, I think there's another situation towards the beginning of the game where one character like suddenly disappears or something, and it wasn't clear to me, like, oh, are they just dead, or maybe you just meet with them 15 minutes later, and I didn't remember that detail.
See, maybe I should have played Oxenfree again.
Well, still time to squeeze it in.
That feels like some kind of interesting and kind of a very compelling kind of narrative heavy lifting, I think. So yeah, I like that. And I think Oxenfree II kind of goes similar ways. I don't sort of feel like there is maybe a mystery quite that intense in this. Maybe there is. I'm just not there yet. But no, that's cool. I appreciate, the what you call it, the mechanisms that would have to go into building a game that would allow you to get to that level of control over the narrative. So that seems super fun to me. I'm intrigued, but I don't feel like there is a ton of stuff in Oxenfree 2 that requires kind of a working understanding of everything that happened in the first game. The characters don't seem to know each other in any way. There is some allusion to, like, remember that weird stuff that happened on that island a few years ago? But that's kind of all you really get, at least thus far in the game. So I don't know that you need to be an Oxenfree expert to appreciate the sequel, which maybe would benefit you.
Yeah, well, it's probably a good approach. It's been quite a while since that first game came out, so probably have better luck picking up people to check this one out if they don't require people to go through the other one first.
Yeah.
So
that is Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. I hope I can finish it this week. I'll chime in again next week if I've seen credits roll and weigh in on whether or not I immediately started another playthrough of it. It's cool. I'm having a really good time with it so far.
Did you get like the ultimate secret ending to Oxenfree 1?
I did get there. Yes, I was able to do the thing I wanted to do.
Okay, so
yeah,
gonna have to do that again this time. Maybe.
Yeah, if that's in there, we'll see. Like I said, I'm so well, not so far. I think I have a sense of kind of where we're going. But yeah, I'm not sure how much of this I'll be able to kind of rewind through and be able to kind of make a series of different decisions. I think it's pretty subtle about where the decision points are. The first game maybe was a little more heavy-handed at this. It certainly isn't like the Telltale thing where you get the little, we've talked about it on the show before, the pop-up in the corner that says, Dave will remember this later.
Yes. You've made an important decision.
And then, yeah, you just go back to that point on your second playthrough and make a different decision.
Right.
So I think Oxenfree, and it feels like Oxenfree 2, you're making kind of sort of subtle choices all along. And some of it is even in your role play. It's in the answers that you give to people and the tone you choose to kind of affect and stuff like that. So I think, I think it's cool. It's subtle. It's not like hitting you over the head with, this is a decision you will regret later.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love whenever that happens in a game. Just tell me what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that it's not super binary. Let's, have a little more sort of nuance to this thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're 30% of the way towards ending B.
Right. I mean, I've played those games. Those are fine. That can be cool too. I like those Telltale games. There's nothing, not to sort of dissuade people from experiencing, the first season of The Walking Dead by Telltale, which is pretty heavy-handed with some of those decisions, but it's a great game. I'll just, 15 years later, maybe we can be a little cooler about these things.
to Telltale's credit, I believe you can just turn those notifications off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Smart. At least that's an option.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have time for Asura's Wrath. What led you back to this game? This is not a new game.
It's not a new game. I'm going to say this for next week because I'm in the middle of it still, but there's a reason for that as well. So please look forward to that.
Cool.
People have waited 10 years to hear about Asura's Wrath, so they can wait one more week.
One more week won't kill you, yeah.
Yeah. We actually already talked about it on the show way back in the day, so it's going to give it another look.
Here, I'll say the only thing that I sort of remember about the demo for Asura's Wrath, which I think we all played back in the day when it first came out, is there is a character at one point who says loudly, Asura! And shakes their fist in the air. So that is, to this point, 10 years later, the only thing I remember about Asura's Wrath is something.
No, that was 90% of the demo.
Is that most of the game? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just once.
Well, I mean, it does happen many times in the full game. But, I think the demo gave you an accurate impression of what the rest of the game was like.
Is this the game where someone gets punched so hard they go through the earth?
They go through the earth.
Okay.
I actually forgot about that, but I believe that was the title of that episode. That seems like something that would happen in this game. I haven't gotten to the point. I haven't gotten to the part in the demo in the full game.
Oh, okay.
But so I'm looking forward to that coming up.
Cool. All right. Well, no spoilers. We'll
can't wait to see that guy get punched through the earth.
Excellent. Well, see, I can remember some weird random shit about video games from a long time ago.
I was surprised. You were like, "Oh, Asura's Wrath." I played that. I'm like, oh, here we go.
What are the two things Randy remembers? All right, let's wrap this thing up then. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. Excuse me, it's X.
Yeah, whatever, guy.
And you can get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join us on Discord. You can hang out with us, chat about video games and other fun stuff. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com. And maybe subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. And maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show.
I really love that, it's not even a long amount of time between recording the show and when it comes out, but we're just like, well, hope all the social media sites we're on are called the same thing when the show comes out. What a normal expectation to have. Anyway. We want to give thanks again to Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, you can go to fearofdark.bandcamp.com. Pretty sure that's still going to be the name of the site on Thursday when the show comes out. So that should be accurate. But that'll be great.
Is solid. That's a good site. It is. It seems to be sort of populated, policed, and run by cool people who appreciate music, who respect artists. So yeah, bandcamp.com. A nice sort of steady quasi-social media site in a sea of dubiousness.
Right. Until they turn it into, Tim Sweeney's musical fun time website or whatever.
Why.com. No. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.